Hello and welcome to our first day of South by Southwest. I'm your host, Wajahat Ali. This is the South by Southwest studio, and I'm very excited to be here this year. I was actually supposed to be here hosting in 2020 before the world changed, but it feels great to be here in person with a live actual crew with live guests. We got a terrific lineup of guests who will be stopping by this week, including actor and comedian Jim Gaffigan, skateboarding legend Tony Hawk, Congressman Adam Schiff, author Neil Stephenson, and a whole lot more. We're going to be back throughout the days over the next 9 days talking with some of the world's most fascinating and brilliant people. You can check out our daily schedule of interviews on our website at sxsw.com/studio. And our first guest today is a Grammy-winning singer-songwriter who has sold more than 50 million albums worldwide, and she's here with the director of a new documentary screening at South by Southwest about her entitled Cheryl. Please welcome Sheryl Crow and director Amy Scott to the South by Southwest studio, our first guests in person in 2 years. How you guys feeling? Today's the premiere of the documentary, tonight at South by Southwest. Exciting?
I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm freaking out.
Freaking out, that's it, freaking out.
I'm freaking out.
This is the first time you guys are seeing it with a live audience of any first audience, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, but you've seen it before. How do you feel?
I love it. I mean, I think Amy nailed it. You know, it's really a weird thing when you're putting together a documentary and there's like 30-something years to put together, and you just basically put it in somebody's hands. But I trusted Amy, and I loved the stuff that she'd done before. I love the Hal Ashby documentary. If you haven't seen that, it's brilliant. And I trusted her, and she found the story and put together something really beautiful. And I hope people will, you know, enjoy it and feel moved, and you know, and maybe learn something they wouldn't have known.
Amy, you were telling me that I thought this documentary you guys spent like years, but you said this just started like a year ago. You're actually, it's like a 1-year cycle from the time you started.
Yes, almost to the date, which for documentaries is like
It's
a
wild.
full-on sprint.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, it was fast, but I mean, it was really intense. You know, we spent a lot of time with Cheryl. She didn't know us. She only knew this one film that I'd done with my amazing team, and we met her on Zoom because we were all still in the pandemic, and then we just went to Nashville and just sort of embedded ourselves in her life, and she trusted us, and so I think that you know, we just kept that momentum and that pace going for a year. So.
But you know, you're a filmmaker, the world's your canvas. You can choose any subject. You did this great documentary on Hal Ashby, fantastic director, which everyone should see that documentary. And you're like, you know what? I want to focus a year of my life on Sheryl Crow. What was that decision like? You know, I want to talk to her, spend my camera, my life with her, and document her amazing life.
I think I was intrigued by Cheryl's music, and I wanted to tell a story about a woman. I wanted to know just her. So many parts of Cheryl's story really resonated with me. Just from a small town. I'm from a small town in Oklahoma. It's like, yeah, I'm not saying anywhere near Sheryl Crow's level, but I could find these entry points into her life, and it was something that I wanted to explore. Also, her team was incredible, and they kind of brought me on, and that's when I knew, oh, this is good. This is a really great story with great people in her world that we can really get down with.
But it's a partnership, right? So you could have had any filmmaker. And you're like, oh, there's all these documentary filmmakers, but there's something about her. All right, I'm gonna let her into my most intimate parts of my life that I've never shared with anybody.
Yeah,
for
I
a
mean,
global audience.
First and foremost, it's really an odd thing to do a documentary. I mean, to me, when I was growing up, documentaries were done, you know, after you died in a fiery plane crash.
And you are thankfully very much alive.
I'm alive,
and with us.
and also I've really enjoyed and been extremely blessed to have a 30-year career, you know. And actually, it started before ever getting a record deal. I was a school teacher, and I was a backup singer for Michael Jackson, and there was all this stuff that I think most people associated me just with the hits that seemed really happy and upbeat. And Amy got that, and I also think that a certain amount of your story gets told by somebody is dictated by their taste and their sensibility. And I just related to that. After meeting with her and spending time with her, I felt like she had, she had a good perspective and also a beautiful storytelling sensitivity that I felt I could trust.
All right, so what were the boundaries, right? Because
No nudity, right off the bat. I don't do nudity.
Yeah. You're like,
I
no,
don't work with
Amy's like,
animals.
there goes a second act.
So much fun.
So you like, because I'm assuming, right, if there's a camera on your face, even if it's a cell phone, you always know that you're on, you're a performer. All of us are, right? So now you got a camera on you, following you for a year. What was the process where you're like, I can just stop performing and just be? Like, did it happen automatically for you because you're a pro, you've been doing this for a long time, or did it take a while for you to just be completely raw and open with the camera right in front of your face?
Well, one of the very first things I said to Amy and her crew is like, I didn't want this to be, and I love VH1, and they are highly responsible for the success that I had, but I didn't want it to feel like a storyteller's or a behind the music.
Yeah.
I didn't want it to feel like it was sugar-coated, and I wanted it to be, the real story. It is really challenging to be a woman, not only in the world, but particularly in my business, and I'm sure in the film business as well. And we've seen a lot of change, but we haven't seen as much change probably as we should have seen.
It's like two steps forward, one step back.
Yeah, and to have lived through that, I think there's a good story in there for a lot of young artists who are coming up. And I mean, I don't know. I just wanted to tell the real story.
Did you ever feel in the process when you were filming, you're like, I got gold? Like, was there a moment where you're like,
yeah.
wow,
Oh,
like,
of
wow,
course.
Cheryl, like I got something that I really wanted that can really resonate with an audience?
Oh, definitely. I think more than I'm hesitant to go, oh, I got gold.
Don't spoil it.
That feels almost exploitive. It's
Right.
like, oh yeah, she's gonna cry. Like, it wasn't like that. It was like, we're really going places in this conversation where there's a level of trust. And I never felt like Cheryl was like performing and then guard down. It wasn't like that at all. It was.
And I will say that the times that I did cry, I would look around and not only Amy was crying, but the whole crew was crying.
Yeah.
So it didn't feel like, it felt very sacred. I mean, that's what you want. I guess the documentaries that I've loved, from Nina Simone to, all the great documentaries have not felt like they were contrived or, they weren't set up to be entertaining. And this definitely was not that. It definitely felt like,
Well, the stuff that resonates is the stuff that's real, right?
Yeah.
The stuff with the warts, because everyone sees the glory, like Sheryl Crow, star, and they're like, oh, Sheryl Crow is a human being. She's a mom. She's had an incredible journey as a woman in an industry that is often brutal. I think always brutal to women. There's a double standard. And in this documentary, you had my producer Franz crying twice. Yeah. He cried when you were talking about being a mom, and there was the arc when you showed the kids growing up. You got a tear. All of us are parents here. And then there was also a tear when you were talking about just the weight of this career where you were able to perform with some of the legends that you grew up with. Like when you take stock of where you've charted your career. Can you tell us about that when you're like looking at the camera and you're like, I've performed with Willie Nelson and Emmylou Harris and all these people that I grew up with. They see me as a peer. Like that must be a humbling moment in life.
It is, and I grapple with that still because I especially think the older that you get, the more your authentic self is that kid that came from a tiny town in Missouri that never thought.
And I like the Missouri, I hear it.
Yeah, that there was anything past the city limits, and those people were the people that gave me a ticket out. I dreamed about being Stevie Nicks. I dreamed about being Carole King. I dreamed about strutting around on stage with Mick and Keith, and then to be able to look back after 30-something years and say that I got to do those things. It's hard to even really, it's hard to even really hold that in my body. I know that sounds metaphysical and all, but
well, there's a weight to it.
There is a weight to it, and it's the part of life that you go, it's just incredible how much you can imagine, but how much bigger it can be even than that. And why it happens for some and it doesn't happen for others. There's all these things that you grapple with. because you're still just that little person, you know what I mean?
The girl from Missouri who just loves music.
Yeah, that lays under the piano and studies the lyrics and knows who the drummer was on what track, and is just a geek.
We're all geeks, so this is a very geek-friendly.
She's really, when she says geek, like she would, when we first sat down, you were naming off all the, and I fancied myself as I know a little thing about music. I was like, who is she talking about?
I mean,
knows like
total.
a very obscure reference, a little bass player on this record or this one. And it was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, but
Amy's like, I concede the musical geekery to Sheryl Crow.
Legit, and that is huge. That was so fun and fascinating
Yeah.
to
But
learn that
if you
about
could get more meta, now you're at the stage of your career where there's young girls who are like, I want to be the next Sheryl Crow. How does that feel to you? Like there's young girls, there's young women out there who want to model their careers after you.
Well, I mean, that's incredible. I got to do this thing the other night, presented an award to Olivia Rodrigo. I did that again.
That
And Bonnie
automatically
Raitt.
gives you cool cred with all the Gen Z, by the way. Just
It does?
that-
Okay,
that's-
good. My kids
you're
say
set for life.
My kids say I'm super cringy tryhard, so I'm learning all the lingo now. But Bonnie Raitt was there, and legend, and then I presented to Olivia, and Phoebe Bridgers was there, and all these young artists, these young women, and it's incredible to be in the lineage first and foremost, but to know that the women whose shoulders I kind of rode on, from Bonnie to Bonnie was the first woman I ever saw hold a guitar in front of a band of all men and rock.
She's still rocking.
And she's still rocking. So it's I don't take it lightly, and I'm constantly, my mommy self is like, don't get so much into the branding, stay into the art, because we need the art. We need the words, we need the intervals, the chords, the things that change us physically to help us figure out who we are, especially now, especially now in these very confusing, chaotic times. And that's what it was for me. It gave me a sense of who I was when I was going through all those awkward periods of life where you don't know who you are, or you're not sure if you're the only weirdo, if you're, and music is that thing that is the analgesic, or the it's the thing that kind of galvanizes all of us together.
Well, it brings joy, right? It brings joy
Yes.
to people who need it at all times. Right now, we're all suffering from massive challenges, right? But oftentimes, the person who brings joy, the person who gives joy, like you're also suffering. And in this documentary, the revelations, the intimacy, it's pretty amazing. And I really appreciated the fact that you opened up about mental health issues. You talked about, I believe it was probably the first time you talked about just suffering from depression. And someone might say, that goes, how can Sheryl Crow be depressed? She has an amazing life. And to reveal that aspect of yourself, did you ever feel, I'm being too vulnerable? This is me being too naked, in a way, emotionally naked? Or did you make the decision, you know what? The camera's on me, and this is a documentary called Cheryl, let's put it all out there.
I mean, if you're going to tell the story of your life, you should tell the story of your life. And for me, the art is so completely informed by my life. And the big hits gave me an opportunity to travel all over the world. I mean, my kids have been to Tokyo. I've played in Colombia in South America. I've been to Russia. But those are the songs people know me by. But the songs that tell the story aren't the ones that the people know necessarily, unless they're really the true fans. And while those songs are a gift, it's the other songs really that, to me, are hopefully what some kid will listen to and go, I'm not the only one that feels this way.
Not just a kid, I think.
Or even
I was telling you, my wife was like, you're talking to Sheryl Crow. I hate you. I'm like, I'm working here, baby. I'm working here. So it's an entire generation, right, that can just process these songs and your journey as well. And Amy, when you were filming this, right, did you ever feel that you had to coax this out, or did it just come out naturally?
No, I mean, I think what maybe the scene you're talking about is around the song Weather Channel, and it's the music that we didn't know it when it was happening. We were filming Cheryl just kind of loosely playing Weather Channel in her church of music that she's built, which was in and of itself the coolest thing. And the words are so heavy to that song, and it never really hit me until I'm like in there with her and she's singing it, and we're all just like, okay, whoa, and you just kind of casually, it just sort of flowed out of her. And I think the music unlocks these heavy things. We didn't go in going, all right, tell me about depression.
Yeah,
We're going to talk about that. Like it wasn't
So it
like
came
that at
organically
all.
through, I mean, it's amazing, it came organically through the music.
And then I felt very ill prepared, and I remember going back and I'm like, okay, maybe we should talk about that song again. You know, it's just
Maybe we should talk about the elephant in the room.
we should revisit that
Are you
because
okay?
that was really special and heavy, but real.
Did you guys, was there a moment like this, and I'm sure there was, that you had to say, cameras off, like this is just, I got to talk to Amy? Or did you put it all out there?
Yeah, I mean, there was one or two times where I felt like I was just overwhelmed with emotion. And I mean, I think only once did I say, okay, I might need a break.
There were some great stories when the camera.
Yeah, I mean, that's when the real,
we
I have to watch my language here. But,
You can, as long as there's an F-bomb, we're good at South by. Yeah. Just no F-bombs.
Good story.
I know. I mean, there's a lot of, I don't know what it would be like to be a documentarian who has to edit hours and hours and hours and years and years and years of footage. I mean, they could have made 3 different documentaries, and I think the story that they told was probably the most important story, because I think the aspects that make me who I am, and that's an interesting thing that you said about how can you be depressed when you have everything going for you in your life.
Some people make that assumption all the time.
That is something that you live with as somebody who struggles in mental health. You feel that guilt, and to be able to, why should I be depressed? I should get, this is ridiculous. But it is something worthy to talk about, because especially now, it does, it can be something that, and I don't want to say it, it can enhance your life if you look at your life and really dig in, and the well becomes deeper. And the deeper the well, the more the joy. But all that stuff is part and parcel of why an artist becomes an artist, Van Gogh didn't start painting because he was just talented. And not that I'm Van Gogh, but I mean, there is a story in there that is, what is it that propels somebody to stick their neck out and write things that are so deeply personal and want to put it out. I mean, it's a little bit like running through the square with no clothes on, which I've not done before. But music has been a great avenue for really just bearing all, but to not ever have the opportunity to talk about what makes you want to be that, to want to be, expressive. I think that's the story.
It's the pain and the joy. It's life. And
it is.
And you explore Cheryl's life in all its intimacy. There's revelations here, there's a journey here, and then people will get to see it tonight. Tonight's the premiere. You're going to sit down, 1 year's worth of work with a live audience at South by Southwest. It's going to be exciting. I hope you guys feel fulfilled. I hope it helps folks. I want to leave with this question, because we are in challenging times, right? There's a pandemic still. There's climate change, which I appreciate that you talk about. Women's rights are under assault. I can go on. I can go through the laundry list of horrors, right? But joy is also important. And you've translated your pain through music that's given so many people joy. Excuse me. What is giving both of you joy right now at this moment?
Oh, my goodness. Well, Cheryl gives me joy. Listen, in the film, she has a line where she says, "It's just joy, man." And so we say that to each other all the time, because it's an inexplicable feeling. And I think because we've lived through a lot of stuff in the last many years, when you do feel joy, you grab it right now and hold on to it.
Yes.
And you seize it. So for me, it's just this experience in this movie.
Yeah, and I think, joy is such a conscientious decision, and it took me a long time to get to that. So I find joy in the tiniest things. I mean, for me to get to go play with my band, I'm 60 now.
What? Good, amazing.
Good lighting.
Me and Amy look at each other like, rolling our eyes, all right.
But, it's the little things, like just gratitude. I've got the 2 most beautiful, awesome kids, and they teach me every day what it means to be awake and joyful and present, and it's little things.
Yeah.
Cheryl, thank you for your music. Amy, thank you for documenting this life. Thank you guys for being our first guest, our first live guest in 2 years. Congrats on the documentary. It's premiering tonight. Thank you both for being with us. It's premiering at 8 p.m. at the Zach Theater, and it will be available online for South by attendees for the next 48 hours beginning tomorrow at 9 a.m. You can watch all of our studio interviews on the South by Southwest TV app, available on Apple TV, Roku, Android TV, and Amazon Fire. These interviews are also available on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/SXSW. For a complete list of our interview schedule, check out sxsw.com/studio. I'm Wajahat Ali, and we've got a lot more today from the South by Southwest studio.